The first draft I really covered seriously, and I'm no expert by the way, I'm no Jay Billis, I'm no Jay Williams, I'm no whoever, but I kind of started paying attention to the draft a lot more. And the first one I really took seriously was 2016. And one of the highly ranked players from that draft class was Kris Dunn. And Kris Dunn has clearly struggled to find sustained success. And it's hard for me just to ignore all the factors that turned, in my opinion, a future star into a role player at best. And because Kris Dunn's NBA career has been ruined by a lot of factors from the jump actually, I needed to make a video to explain it because it's been something that has bothered me for years upon years of watching his career, and it's something that I feel like I need to make a video about. But before we get into that, please feel free to like and subscribe if you're new, of course, and make sure you do follow my Instagram and my Twitter. Links to those in the description as always. I have a film essay channel where I do plan on doing some film essays over break, and I have a podcast channel. Expect a few of those coming out soon as well. And yeah, let's get right into why Kris Dunn became a broken player. To understand Kris Dunn, I think we have to look at his past. Now, I'm not going into complete detail about his childhood because that could be a whole video on its own. There are plenty of videos and articles that you can look into his past about. But to summarize, Kris and his brother John were taken away from their father by their mom at a very young age, and they basically lived on their own because their mom was constantly in and out of jail, and they were forced to kind of grow up quickly. Eventually, Kris's father would gain custody of his sons and would move him back to Connecticut, and Kris Dunn would develop into a high school superstar athlete and would become the first player in nearly 3 decades to be named a McDonald's All-American in the state of Connecticut. And he would play his college ball at Providence. It was at Providence where he would develop, in my opinion, and probably the opinion of a lot of people, into one of the greatest players in Big East history. He would win the Big East Player of the Year twice and the Big East Defensive Player of the Year twice. And he would declare for the 2016 NBA Draft, where he was a consensus 3rd best prospect behind Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram. He drew comparisons to all-star point guards like John Wall. He was praised for his playmaking, his defense, his ball handling. So those are 3 things. And Kris Dunn would go 5th overall, not 3rd, because the Celtics would take Jaylen Brown 3rd overall, and the Suns would take Dragan Bender 4th overall, so Kris Dunn would fall to the 5th pick. He was viewed as a serious contender for Rookie of the Year, and once Ben Simmons was ruled out for the rest of the year, Kris Dunn was viewed as probably the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. However, that's not what happened. Kris Dunn was a top 5 pick and a favorite to win Rookie of the Year. There's one problem, and it's a really big problem. His head coach was Tom Thibodeau. Thibs is a guy I can say many things about. I have said many things about. And I don't think any of them are nice, so I won't say them right now. Kris Dunn would be the primary backup to veteran point guard Ricky Rubio, and he would split time really with Tyus Jones, another point guard on the roster. And he was getting some of the most inconsistent minutes I've seen from a rookie. One night he would get 15 minutes, the next night he would get 19. Then he would get 29 for a few games during a stretch, then back down to 15. You get the idea. Some nights he would even get a DNP. Inconsistent minutes can hurt a player, especially a rookie. And for Kris Dunn, this could have taken a mental toll on him, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it did. Not knowing how much playtime you can get can hurt how you prepare, hurt your mental state as far as how well you think you are as a player. And instead of giving a rookie consistent minutes and a consistent role, they basically played mind games with him, and he didn't know what to do. It can make you question if you are something that's good enough to have a defined role. And for Kris Dunn, who was the best high school basketball player in his state in nearly 30 years, who was one of the best players in his college conference, if not one of the best of all time in his college conference, and now he's a backup player with inconsistent minutes. For his rookie year, he would average around 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a massive disappointment by a long shot. However, he was solid when given minutes. As a starter, he would average 6 points and 7 assists. When given 30 or more minutes, he averaged 8 points and 8 assists. And while Kris Dunn wasn't playing at his best most of the season, he had a few solid games. He had a 10-point, 16-assist game, a 10.8 rebound, 9 assist game, a 10.4 rebound, 6 assists, 5 steal game. Also, he was a very good defender. He was a good shot blocker for his position as well. So there was some signs that Kris Dunn could be someone given opportunity. Kris Dunn, after his rookie year, would be traded alongside Zach LaVine and the 7th overall pick in the 2017 NBA Draft, Lauri Markkanen, and they all would head to Chicago in exchange for Jimmy Butler. He would only play 52 games in his second year, but he would improve. He would actually improve. He'd average 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. So it was clear he could put up numbers when given the opportunity, and you saw more of the signs that he could be what we saw at Providence. The next year, he would play in 46 games and would put up 11, 4, and 6. So injuries were a big factor. And then that offseason, the Bulls would draft a point guard, Kobe White, 7th overall. Putting Dunn's questionable future with the team up in the air. And he's only averaging 7, 3, and 3 this year. Plus, Jim Boylen is, well, how do I say nicely, less than an ideal coach to go to after you just dealt with Tom Thibodeau. What do I think Kris Dunn and its future in the NBA holds? I don't think he's on his last sentence. That's the first thing I'm going to say. You see, he's a solid playmaker and a good defender, which will always get you a spot in a rotation for an NBA team. However, I think he won't ever live up to the top 5 billing he had coming out of college. And, I think a lot of it has to do with how the point guard position has changed. You see, in the early 2000s, I think Kris Dunn's style may have led to stardom, if under the right coaching, of course. However, Dunn's strengths are playmaking, explosiveness, and defense. And those aren't necessarily what make up a star point guard in today's NBA. The modern NBA star point guard is more of a scorer, and it's quite imperative. Look at guys like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Kemba Walker, and even Russell Westbrook to an extent. Being able to put up 20 points at ease, it goes to show what teams want in the star floor in general. And it shows. Look at guys like De'Aaron Fox, John Morant, Trae Young. All of them are being touted as future stars, while someone like Lonzo Ball isn't. You see, the 3 guys I mentioned before could probably put up 20 points a game at ease in their prime. Especially Trae Young, actually. Trae Young is already doing it, but I could see Fox and Morant also being able to be 20-point per game guys in this league at ease. Lonzo is more of a pass-first guy. It's actually kind of a rare thing to see him get 20 points. If you want to be a scorer, it's going to be hard to really be a star at the point guard position. And Dunn hasn't shown any skills of potential elite scoring in this league. However, that doesn't mean he can't be a solid player in this league for a long time. He could be a key rotation player, even an average starter. Because just because you can't be the star 20-point per game point guard in this league, it doesn't mean that you can't be a good player for a long time. But I think the door is set on his chances of being a star. The point I'm trying to make is this. Everything has context behind it. It's easy to dismiss Kris Dunn as a letdown and a disappointment, especially given his top 5 billing. And it's true, he hasn't lived up to expectations at all. However, the factors behind his failure to live up to these expectations must be told. Coaching is important. Coaching can turn an all-star into an MVP. They can turn a contender into a champion. They can make systems around a player that can have him putting up superstar numbers to putting up legendary numbers. But they can also hurt a player. Inconsistent players can mess up a team in a way. But more importantly, inconsistent minutes can mess with a young player's mentality. Part of the reason Darko Milicic failed in the NBA was because early on he wasn't playing much and he wasn't wanted, and his head coach barely played him. Even though Darko was clearly talented and had high expectations because of him going second overall, he was a fringe rotation player early on. And it clearly hurt his mindset moving forward. He's even said it before. Now, there are other reasons Darko failed in the NBA, but coaching early on clearly stunted his development. More likely, this broke him as a player. You have to understand where these kids kind of come from. They were the best in high school. They were the big man on campus. And sitting on the end of the bench as a big impact, it can be a big change. It's something they aren't used to. Also, if you're sitting at the end of a bench as a high draft pick, it can take a mental toll on you because people will call you disappointment. Everything happens for a reason, and sometimes high draft picks fail because they aren't good enough. It's totally possible. But sometimes other factors can turn a promising player into a broken player.